Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelist. I'm Will, and today we're here to talk about episode 11 of the Legend of Vox Machina Season 2. But before we do, let me give a special shout out to Nefer for the super thanks comment. The support is truly appreciated. Thank you so much, man. Also, let me give the quick spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the original campaign, aspects of this breakdown could ruin parts of the show. That being said, if we ever dive into super spoiler territory, you know the drill. Threat level midnight. If you don't want to know, just mute while that symbol's on the screen. Alrighty, y'all, we're picking up right where we left off with Scanlan and Kaylee. And if you came from my last breakdown, you would have seen the first half of this interaction from the original campaign. I will be showing you the conclusion to that after we finish this segment. But we launch with Scanlan basically going into this flashback, reminiscing about how he first met Kaylee's mother, or at least who he thinks to be Kaylee's mother. And there's a lot of Easter eggs in this shot. First and foremost, we find ourselves in the Leaky Tap, which is the name of a tavern that we go to in Campaign 2, actually. Leaky Tap never shows up itself in Campaign 1 mostly because it is a half a world away. It is actually on the continent of Wildmount in Zadash. So it's cool to see Scanlan, this bard who clearly has a history of being a traveling musician. It's cool to see him in places, different places of the world that we didn't get to see him in the original campaign. Okay, now let's take a closer look at some of these details. First, behind the bar, we have this shelf with a bunch of mugs on it. Now, I think a lot of these are references to mugs the cast used throughout the history of Critical Role. It doesn't seem as if there is a mug for each member of the cast, so I don't know why they would include almost everyone, but not everyone. It probably just means that some of these more generic ones aren't necessarily references, but I'm still going to point out ones that I think they could be. So starting from the left, we have what I think is Travis's mug from early on in the campaigns. It's got a little bottle opener on the side, which I think is kind of what's being depicted there. Next to that, we have, of course, Sam's iconic mug, if we can even call it that. Next to that, we have a generic tankard, but as you can see here, Laura is, using something very similar to that. Next to that, we have Marisha's mug with a little person attached to it. There also looks to be some sort of bird figurine behind this in the show. I can't tell if that's just part of the cup or if it is indeed behind it. Either way, I'm not entirely sure what that is. But next to that, we have a mug that looks a lot like one Matt has used numerous times. Next to that just looks like a generic copper mug or perhaps coffee cup. But then next to that looks a lot like a mug Liam has used a number of times. And then next to that, we've got some potions and then, maybe a few other miscellaneous cups there on the far end. Now, if we make our way down here, we've got a couple of kegs of ale. We've got the Cold Iron Stout and the Firejaw Ale. I think these are just kind of slight references to Strongjaw Ale, which, of course, Grog Strongjaw, that's exactly what it's referencing. As you've seen in the show, Grog likes to drink a lot, so one of the first kind of pieces of merch or branding they did was create Strongjaw Ale. Travis even had a little miniature keg that he had at the table, which they then even iterated into this larger keg that became a prop. And they even put out merch, Strongjaw Ale. Would recommend. Very comfortable shirt. Not a brand deal. But yeah, so I think these are kind of just slight references to that. They couldn't literally do Strongjaw Ale because then that would canonize his family having a brewery, which they don't. Okay, now let's make our way to this staircase here and take a closer look at this NPC that's sitting down. Now, granted, this is a reach, but hey, what are we here for, y'all? We're here for the reaches, right? I think this could be Claudia Sheed. Now, who is Claudia Sheed, you might ask? Well, she is one of the owners of the Leaky Tap, and we know this thanks to Campaign 2. Now, again, Campaign 2 takes place roughly 30 years after the events of Campaign 1, and this flashback could be happening who knows when. So this is at least 30 years ago. Presumably more, because this would have been before Kaylee was born. So we're probably looking at 50-ish years ago. But she is half elven. More on that in a second, which means they age slowly. So she could look the same here and 50 years in the future. But what's important about Claudia, and this isn't really spoilery, is that she is a drow that is actually just disguising herself to look like this. So with illusion magic, she could definitely look the exact same here versus in Campaign 2. Now, There is no official artwork of Claudia Sheed, but there is fan art that I picked up from the Critical Role Wikipedia, and I'll throw that up now. And this looks a lot like her. She does have the elven ears. She's got the bun. And here's how Matt described her in Campaign 2.
The one leaving looks to be an elven woman, little, what would look to be the equivalent of a human 40s or so. So who knows how long her actual elven age is, but looks graceful if a lit, looking a bit disheveled, hair pulled back and kind of just tied into a small kind of haphazard bun.
I mean, that's basically this NPC. I don't think this really, there's no depth to this. This isn't like some big reveal or anything, but I think this is just a really great, little attention to detail and potential nod from, the animators or, Matt or whoever made this call. Or, it's just a complete coincidence and I am a stark raving lunatic. But, she's sitting on the stairs, and what does that say to me? That says boss energy. Like, yeah, this is my place. I'm just going to sit here on the stairs while I talk to you. That'd be a bit presumptuous for just a random patron to be sitting in the middle of the stairs. I don't know. You guys tell me. But from here, let's move on over to these people sitting at the bar. Now, the main thing I've noticed about this guy was that there is a shield and sword next to him. So clearly he is a warrior, a soldier of some sort. Again, this is another reach. But in Campaign 2, we come to find out that the Leaky Tap is used as kind of a secret meeting place for this group known as the Knights of Requital. Again, that's 50 years, potentially, more in the future from where we are right now. So is this literally a member of the Knights of Requital? Maybe not, and probably not. But it still could just be a slight little nod to that lore that, those of us that have seen the original campaigns would be familiar with. Next up in this flashback, we get a shot of this bag, and the bag has the Critical Role logo on it. In addition to that, it does look a lot like the bag they gave away to Kickstarter backers back when they were originally funding this show. After this, we get the hilarious moment where Kaylee's like, "That's not my mom that you're describing." And so Scanlan launches into listing these other names, trying to figure it out. And one of the names he says is Bert, which is a reference, to the fact that he's bisexual, if that wasn't clear enough already. But it was also a reference to a character persona that he used to put on in the original campaign. He would pretend to be Burt Reynolds, and he basically used this bit when he was trying to persuade somebody or convince someone of something. In addition to that, he also says the name Clara, which this is probably a reach and more of a coincidence, but Clara is the name of one of the characters in Campaign 2's mothers. So it could be a little like, maybe Scanlan got busy with her back in the day. But again, probably more of a coincidence. We then get the reveal that her mother's name is actually Sybil, which is the same as it was in the original campaign. And just like there, Scanlan really doesn't remember much about her, so we don't really learn anything new, and there's not really any deeper insights to glean. One other last detail in this opening sequence is the sword that Kaylee threatens Scanlan with. There is clearly some sort of magical enchantment on it, and we come to find out that it is just like an immovable rod, which is an item in D&D that, is just like it sounds. You click a button, and the rod will not move from where you've placed it. So they've clearly combined that with the sword here, maybe for copyright reasons. And if you've seen all 3 episodes, this is going to come into play later. But yeah, in the original campaign, they didn't get this from Kaylee. Vox Machina already had an immovable rod, but this serves as a nice introduction to the item for those that weren't familiar. Also, from here, we finished this opening sequence, so I'm going to show you the rest of the clip from the original campaign. Now, if you didn't see the first half, go check out my breakdown of last episode.
Now take up your sword.
First of all, Kaylee, it's so wonderful to meet you.
Don't try it on me.
No! Listen, I have my faults, for sure, but I didn't know that you existed. I would have come to visit, I would have come to meet you. How can you fault me for something that I did not know about?
Do you even remember Sybil?
I mean, could you describe her a little more detailed?
Yikes.
Make a,
Oh, man.
just make a wisdom check. Just roll d20, add your wisdom modifier.
Okay. Wisdom, which is a -2. 16.
16. You vaguely recall Sybil. She had golden hair, very eager to escape her simple beginnings, and very clingy very quickly. You jumped out of there very fast, from your perspective.
Ah, yes, Sybil. She was passionate, intelligent. Yeah, she's really a lot of handsy, sort of. I mean, I think I remember her quite well, and she was a wonderful person, and you should be honored to have such a wonderful person as your parent, and not someone like me, because I was a scoundrel, you're right.
You are a scoundrel.
I have been in past moments in my life a scoundrel.
Do you even realize you nearly invited your daughter up to sleep with you?
I mean,
You
feel
don't
like
care.
I wouldn't have let it go that far.
You have no boundaries. You take what you like and you keep walking on. You trick folk. Now draw your blade.
I don't want to fight you, if that's what you're insinuating. Listen, I know that I've made mistakes in my life. I've admitted as much before, and I don't know why I'm this way. I must need to do a lot of soul searching to come up with an answer, but there is a woman who I love very dearly and who I would do anything for, and I'm trying to be a better person. I haven't been to a whorehouse in months. It's a big step for me. Big step. I know that sounds callous and cruel, but I've tried to be a better person. If you're here to fight me, I'm afraid you're going to be terribly disappointed, because I will just let you kill me if that's what it takes. I didn't know you existed, and my heart is breaking 100 times now for not knowing it. Every year that you've been alive is a year I could have been a better person and known someone who could have made me a better person, and I'm only sorry that I didn't know it. If there's anything I can do for you from now on, if you are truly my blood, I will, because among my many faults, ego is certainly one of them, and knowing you're part of me makes me love you even more.
Make a persuasion check. With advantage for that speech.
Persuasion
Is
check?
it-
With advantage.
It won't matter.
Is there a manipulation check?
32.
No, said it won't matter.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Oh
She
shit,
rolls
she's
high,
big,
too.
she's big.
the bard.
As she stands there with her blade out, kind of staring at you, you can see like the veins in her neck tensing.
I slowly
quivering.
unbutton my shirt and show her my chest and say, stab me right here if you'd like, and I will not resist. You've earned it. Take me.
You see the tear begin to roll down her cheek as her jaw clenches. And she thrusts forward and rolls a natural one.
A natural
Oh,
one.
a natural one.
As she goes to strike towards you, even in that moment, her will falters and the blade just falls limp. It hits your chest, and you feel the piercing of something pushing into your flesh, but no more than maybe half an inch, as there's no real force behind the blade. And as the hand releases her weapon, it clatters to the ground as her momentum carries her arms around your shoulders.
Oh man.
As she holds you there, her kind of tousled, short pixie brown hair, you can feel the wetness across the back of your neck, and you just hear her voice trembling in your ear say, "Why? Why can't I do it? All the years building up to this, and I have the chance, and I can't do it."
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that you're going through this, and I'm more sorry that you're going through this by yourself. But I think deep down, you're a short halt, and there's something that you have that's connected to me and I to you, and perhaps I misread that as some sort of icky attraction, and I apologize, but I've known for a while now that something is missing in my life, some sort of focus and some sort of moral compass, and maybe it's just arrived at my doorstep.
You say that, and her arms kind of tense for a minute, like an involuntary, just trying to pull you closer. Then they lax, and she steps away, kind of averting her gaze, keeping her head down. She bends down and picks up her blade. Doesn't sheath it, just holds it limply at her side. And she begins to walk for the door. And she opens the door and looks back at you. Goes, her eyes kind of finally meeting yours, and you can see kind of the wet stains across her cheeks. You're still a scoundrel. That's what's kept you alive this long. In some ways, it's what's kept me alive this long. I've got a lot to think about. I'm gonna go for a walk. I need some fresh air. And she closes the door behind her.
I just sit for a moment and think about everything. Try to remember more about Sybil.
It's a lot of faces blurring.
Yeah.
You worked your way through a lot of Tal'Duri in those days.
Yeah, you did.
Yes. She was. Yes, I think, she wasn't that giant. No, she was, okay. And I have a very restless night thinking about everything in my room.
Okay. And with that, we're gonna go ahead and take a bathroom break.
Amazing, amazing!
So good. You.
Sam Riegel, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my god.
Oh, you avoided a showdown in your bedroom.
Oh,
was
with
ready.
my daughter.
Was ready.
Alrighty, y'all. I know that clip was a bit longer, but I had to show the whole thing. And actually, this breakdown's probably going to end up being even longer than my last breakdown because there's a few clips that are on the longer side that I really want to share. So thank you for being psychos like me and enjoying this. But anyway, we move on to this next scene where some of Vox Machina is still drinking. And the detail I loved here is that there's like 30 bugs in front of Pike. Now, if you didn't notice in the previous episode, you can see her in the background feeling some type of way about how Scanlan and Kaylee are absconding off to the room together. So she's clearly kind of drinking her feelings away. Another little detail I like here is that Percy is drinking wine, which also in season 1, when they were in the bar, he was drinking wine because, he's too high class for just this regular old ale. Next up, we have this NPC, the same one that looks like Pipsqueak from Avatar: The Last Airbender, but he also looks like a swole Matt Mercer, like maybe he joined Vox Machina or something. But we have him saying, you can certainly try before he gets cut off. And as I mentioned in an earlier breakdown, when Keyleth said this very same thing, that is an iconic line from Critical Role. Next up, we have Vax being led out of the bar by a thread of fate, which leads him out to the carnage of the courtyard, which is currently being overlooked by a bunch of ravens that have their eyes on him. And soon, the ghosts of these lost souls begin to spring up from these bodies, and Vax runs into the Raven Queen, at which point, all at once, he is surrounded by many familiar faces. And there are actually a few different angles we get of this, so we'll cycle through and identify everybody. First of all, in this shot, we have this girl behind Vax is actually the same one from the little fishing village that we saw in Season 1 when Vox Machina were hunting down Brimscythe. In this next shot, we also have the little boy from that very same village, and we have Ralia, who is one of the Whitestone Rebellion members from Season 1. And then in this final shot, we have this guard that could be seen in Season 1 as part of Jarrett's troop. Of course, we have Sovereign Uriel here in the middle, and finally we have Archibald Desnay on the right. And these souls are basically begging Vax to usher them into the beyond. And that's when he sees the Raven Queen and all of these threads of fate are pulling him closer to her. And I will touch more on this, but I'm going to wait until Vax actually goes to the temple. And before that happens, we get this scene of Vax and Scanlan having some one-on-one time. And I really appreciated this because we haven't had much one-on-one with those two, and they're great friends in the campaign, but they are even better friends in real life, Sam and Liam. So I just really appreciated them taking the steps to establish this relationship a bit more. And one important thing that Vax takes from this is Scanlan's advice to take the plunge, something he will quite literally do here in a moment. Okay, before we head on over to the temple, there's one more detail I love, and I just really enjoy how they are putting in these subtle moments. But when Percy is explaining his plan, going over the technical jargon, and he's kind of just lost the entire room and they're kind of over it. Everyone except for Vex, that is, because she is slipping him this sly little smirk, and I just love it. Okay, so as we move on to Vax making his way to the Temple of the Matron of Ravens, allow me to lay a little bit of groundwork. In the original campaign, this did happen, but it didn't happen at this point in the sequence of events, nor did it happen at this location in Western, neither of which is a big change. Like, it doesn't even really make any difference. But in the original campaign, it happened in Vasselheim, which is the same city they were at the beginning of this season. But clearly, they just made this change to better fit the narrative for the show. But a couple of interesting details here is one, I love that, Vax knows that he's being followed, but no, it's not Vex who is actually being successfully stealthy because, she learned from the best and has been traveling with her brother her whole life. It's actually Keyleth who is also trying to track them. So I thought that was funny. But beyond that, I like that, this temple is ruined because Western has been, demolished by Umbrasyl and the Herd over the recent weeks. But when Vax initially goes inside, it looks like this pristine temple. And I love the details of the iconography in here. All the little strings looking like the threads of fate. But at the end of this sequence, which I'm just going to jump ahead to show this really quick, Vax looks back and he sees the ruined temple. So basically, he went through this vision. Like, this isn't really a fully operational temple with these priests inside. This was all, just part of this vision. I don't know if is the right word or not, but experience the matron was giving him. Okay, so now let's rewind a bit. Vax walks into this temple and he is immediately surrounded by these cultists that just apparate out of thin air. And I'm going to be honest, the first thing for some reason that my mind went to, I was like, are these cultists dressed the same way that the cultists in Matt's escape room proposal were to Marisha? Yeah, that's a sentence. And no, they're not. But I don't know why. I just was thinking like that would be the craziest little illusion, but I don't think it's the case. But I still wanted to say it in this video just in case that sentence alone got people curious. And if you didn't know, yeah, check that out. But so he walks up to the pool, takes the plunge, and yeah, this is literally a pool of blood that Vax has to essentially choke on and die in order to like transcend to this realm where he then will meet with the Raven Queen. While this is happening, we get this great moment between Vex and Keyleth, where Keyleth is freaking out about the Matron of Ravens and her followers, citing these weird things they like to do, specifically enemas, which I think is maybe some more subliminal setup for what's going to be happening with Umbrasyl at the end of this episode. But more importantly, in this interaction, they have a heart-to-heart about Vax in particular. And this is a moment directly inspired by a moment from the original campaign. Now, it didn't happen at this same time because, like I said, this temple moment is kind of being plucked from another moment in and of itself. But I'm pretty sure this moment I'm about to show you is what inspired what we got here in the show.
So, my brother. What's going on with you guys? Because I just asked him and he got really awkward. I mean, is it like for real? Is it definitely happening? Are you guys in love? Are you getting married? Having babies? Little druid babies?
Oh, wow, you just did a lot of things in a very short amount of time. I have a lot that I still have to do and still have to figure out, about myself.
So, do you like him? Do you love him? That's an answer. You can just answer it. It's not a big deal. You just say yes or no.
I'm afraid what will happen if I say yes.
Okay, that's not what I asked, though.
I know.
Don't think about the fear. Just think about what you're feeling.
Maybe.
I think that's a yes.
Will you hate me if I do?
No.
Sure. Because I
Kaylee-
kind of thought you might for a very long time.
You know, I thought I might as well, but here's the thing. We've been through a lot. We face death on a very regular basis. And I see the way he looks at you. And I see the way you look at him. And happiness is fleeting in this world. We don't know when it will end. Take advantage of it while you can. And stop living in fear.
Maybe we're not people who are allowed happiness.
That's bullshit, Kenneth.
And what happens if I lose either of you?
Well, you go on. Regardless of the outcome, there is a purpose.
You don't think we're just destroying everything everywhere
No.
we go?
No! Are you kidding? We saved an entire town today. More dragons may come, but for the time being, the people are safe. And we are safe. If we're successful, we could save this entire fucking world.
I don't know if I'm cut out to be a hero.
You already are.
I don't know about that.
Anyway. Be happy. Go to him. Just live in the moment. Don't worry about it right now.
Maybe there's another time and another place where we don't have to. But now I feel like we do.
We're in a mansion right now. Fucking cannonball! And I get up and I cannonball.
I cast breathing underwater on myself, and I just sink to the bottom of the pool.
And now we've got Vax waking up to his meeting face to face with the Matron of Ravens, played by none other than the iconic voice actress Courtney Taylor, another titan of the industry. And this shot was just breathtaking. It was just so cool to see the Matron of Ravens in just full glory like this. It seems like a Final Fantasy boss or something. And just the imagery with the threads of fate and the big ring behind her. I just thought this was gorgeous. And basically what's going on here is the Raven Queen is explaining fully to Vax like what this deal that he made means. That the moment between life and death is sacred and she needs him to help shepherd these souls and protect that moment. I'm not going to go into it further than that because I am going to share the clip from the original campaign as well, and that will also cover this. But a big thing I wanted to touch on here was the fact that she says he is fate touched. And again, she kind of explains what this means, but just to touch on it a bit more, this kind of explains why she had her eyes on him even before he made this deal. And fate touched is a big thing in Matt's games specifically. You know, it means you kind of can twirl the threads of fate around you, like she mentions. But let me have Matt explain it to you when he was explaining it to a con right in the early days of Vox Machina. And he's actually talking about a fate touched in another one of his campaigns.
We've run some really, really great epic sweeping storylines to the point where one of our characters, my friend Chloe plays, is a halfling rogue. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be talking, I'm doing that guy. I'm like, all right, here's the story about my campaign, guys. Here's what happened in the game, so bear with me. Her character, she discovers what's called a fate touched, which means there are certain individuals born in this world that, you know, the threads of fate tend to just gravitate towards them. So no matter what they do in their life, their actions either, they have big impact in the world around them, or events tend to congregate around them, good or bad. You know, past historical conquerors have been fate touched in this universe, and she happens to be one. And so the party traveling with her in general is just a very dangerous thing, but also brings very cool things about it.
So being fate touched is a really big deal in Matt's world building and his lore, and it's a concept that he's used throughout multiple campaigns in his life. So this was big, and it's not like this was something that Liam would have said he wanted to be when he was making Vax. He didn't, come up to Matt and say, "Hey, I want Vax to be fate touched," make him this really important character in the world. Of course not. This is something that Matt bestows upon you as the dungeon master. And for Critical Role, without getting lost too in the weeds, for the majority of them when they started playing just as friends before this ever became a Twitch stream, most of them hadn't played before. Only a couple of them had. Taliesin, Marisha, and I think the rest might have been their first time ever. And a cool little moment, because Marisha and Taliesin are familiar with Matt and his world building, and they are familiar with the concept of fate touched. Check out their reaction when this is first revealed during the live stream.
You are fate touched. The choice is yours. Rebirth or ruin.
So yeah, big deal. And like I said, Matt is the one that decided Liam would be fate touched, but it wasn't because he made that deal with the Raven Queen. That was just kind of serendipitous coincidence. Here he explains more.
Follow-up question.
Please.
Fate touched. Always going to be a thing, or do you think that just sprang out of that moment?
No, to be perfectly honest, I decided on the fate touch thing because I know you were going through some hard stuff and I wanted to give some little kind of special light to you.
Wow.
Oh, Matt.
Wow, that's crazy.
I didn't know when it was going to come up.
Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy. It's okay.
It's bad down
Don't
there.
go under there. It's
I
where
saw spiders.
the bottom
Seriously.
of Taliesin is. Wow, that's really special.
And I didn't know when it was going to come up, or I thought it might be more of like a late campaign reveal, like once things got more epic in scale and you were working with divinity, someone would recognize and point that out and would be like, oh. But that moment made complete sense when you made that decree to the Raven Queen, and her being the purveyor over fate. I was like, well, this is the moment where it would come up.
Yeah.
This fucking game.
Wow.
Okay, which one of you's cutting onions? Stop that. Cutting back to the show, we have Vax getting to see how these threads of fate connect him to all of those around him. And in this shot, we get a bunch of characters, and I'm going to go through and name them all really quick. There's a couple in the next shot that I'm unsure of, but we'll touch on that when we get to those. So, going from left to right here, we have Gilmore, Scanlan, Cash, Zara, Allura, Vex, Percy, Kima, Pike, Grog, Keyleth, Zanror, and Cassandra. All right, so there were 13 characters in that last shot connected by the threads of fate. However, we then switched to this profile view, and there are now 15 characters connected by the threads of fate. And some of the characters from the first shot aren't in this shot, so there are a few new faces here. Some I'm confident on, some are a little bit up for discussion. Now, the ones I have already labeled, I'm not going to go over those again. I'm very confident in those. But for these 4 question marks, I'm going to start on the left side, and we'll go from there. So for the red question marks, this could be Zara. The silhouette and coat silhouette is very similar, but I don't think it is for a few reasons, or at least here's a few reasons why it might not be. 1, Cash is not next to her. 2, there's no tail visible in the silhouette. And 3, if we go back to the previous shot from behind Vax's perspective, then in this shot, if that is Zara, she's on the wrong side of Percy. Now, maybe it's not that deep and this is still Zara, but if it's not Zara, then I've got 2 guesses essentially. 1, I think this could be Vilya, aka Keyleth's mother, or it could be the twins' mother, Vax and Vex's real mom, not their stepmom. So if we move on to the next one, this kind of plays into that. I'm pretty sure this yellow check mark is Corin, aka Keyleth's father, who is somebody Vax met, which may play into who these could possibly be. We're talking about fate and gods here, so even if Vax has never met somebody, I think they could still show up in this scene. But if we want to put the filter on it of these having to be people Vax has met, then the red question mark would probably have to be either Zara or Vax's mother. So moving on to the teal, this is a 50-50. So if that is Zara in the red, I think teal is Vax's mother. But If the red is Vax's mother, then I think teal is Keeper Yenin. The silhouette looks a lot like Keeper Yenin's. I mean, it's hard to tell that it's so small, but it feels like that would fit. But if red is Zara, then I'm pretty sure Vax's mother is one of these, and it would have to be this one. Because the Raven Queen even explicitly mentions your sister and your mother in the dialogue for this moment. So I would have to assume that both of those people are actually here when she's saying that. And then finally, the gray question marks. This is Sildor. I'm very confident on this one as well. Vax's father. All right, y'all. Thanks to the ever-loving Everlight if you bared with me through that one. If you're still watching this video, I know you're my people. Thank you. One last thing in this scene I want to touch on is this dialogue from the Raven Queen. And let me go ahead and throw up a threat level midnight for this portion. So, she essentially tells him he does not need to fear death. And I think that statement could just be taken at surface level, and that would be fine. I mean, especially she's the god of death. She's saying like, hey, just don't worry about that anymore. It's a natural part of life. It gives meaning to life, yada, yada, yada. But I think there is the deeper potential meaning here, foreshadowing the fact that Vax at some point will become a revenant, which essentially means he won't die. Well, he will die, but he will just come back. So I think there could be the added layer of not having to fear death for that reason. Artiel, now I want to share the clip of the actual campaign where Vax went through this, just so you guys can see how true they were to the spirit of the original, and just because it's a really interesting moment from the original campaign.
I have come to pay a debt, and I do so gladly and without question. What would you have of me?
You came to speak with the lady. Well, the way is before you. She gestures to the pool.
Walk slow and straight in.
You step into it. Comes up to your ankles, to your knees. And what catches you first is the liquid is very thick. It is viscous in a familiar way. This is most definitively a pool of blood. And it is cold. It is ice cold. As you step in, you can feel as it begins to seep into your boots and begins to find its way into the crevices of your outfit. As you get down to your waist, it's just chilling and you can't help but stand up straight as you step further in, not sure quite how deep it gets. And it gets deeper and deeper. Up past your chest, up past your shoulders, and you're not even halfway into the center of this pool before it's going past your nose.
Keep going.
You take your last breath, hold it, and submerge yourself in the pool. Darkness around you, the cold sensation. Nothing. Nothing. Nothing.
Open my mouth and inhale.
As you do, you feel the blood fill your lungs, and you immediately, your lungs begin to seize with the lack of oxygen. You instinctually begin to try and reach up for the water and pull, but you can't rise. You can't get up. And at that point, the cold, piercing pain of the liquid in your lungs becomes warm. All the liquid around you becomes warm, and in the darkness where you cannot see, you calm as suddenly your breathing is no longer difficult. It's natural. It's like air. And it's reminiscent of being in the womb, of the moment of birth that you've forgotten so long ago, that you're just surrounded in darkness and comfort. And piercing the center of this darkness before you, you see a very faint bead of white light just begin to spark and grow and grow. And as that light widens out, it becomes a face. A porcelain face, a nose, lips, a chin. Empty dark sockets. Long, dark hair that goes to crimson and surrounds you. You see a small hand reach up behind and lift you from your legs. And from what you thought was only a few feet of liquid, you look around you and it is an endless space, a space you've been before, a space that you once visited in your sleep, in your dreams. You look down below and you can see the infinite skein of threads that you were once given inspection to. As you look down, you see the very palm of the Raven Queen holding you aloft in this space as the mask pulls in close to you with a smile. The lips don't move, but you hear a voice from all directions in your head. A comforting voice, a welcoming voice. My champion, Vax'ildan, you've come to me at last.
This was always supposed to happen, wasn't it?
There is destiny, but you still guide your path where it must go. Especially you, fate-touched. You're one of the few that bends the threads near and around you. That's why you're so interesting to me.
I give myself willingly to you for the bargain that was struck. Although I question if the bargain was just the surface reason for this to happen.
She steps forward and touches the side of your face. There are those who will be frightened of you. But know what we do is one of the most important gifts of all. And she grabs your head, pulls down and kisses you in the forehead.
Okay, one last thing to touch on during this segment, and that is, as you can see, when Vax comes out of this, he's smiling. A weight has been lifted. He kind of feels like he has a more concrete idea of what's happening to him and what his path ahead looks like. And in the original campaign, Vax was going through an existential crisis during this time in the campaign. And he was actually even flirting with the idea of starting to follow Pike's god, the Everlight, as it's called in the show. But before he really got to dive into that, all of this stuff with the Matron of Ravens developed, and, he found his path that way. And all around this time, Vax, who is the rogue, started taking levels in Paladin. So moving forward, we might see Vax do some things he hasn't done before. Next up, we get another scene of Percy trying to explain his trap and his plan to everybody. And like I mentioned in the earlier breakdown, At Dawn We Plan was the name of the episode prior to them going to fight Umbrasyl, because they spent almost the majority of the whole thing planning. And it was honestly the first time Vox Machina really sat down and tried to go into a quote-unquote boss encounter with a plan. So they really were trying to make something happen here. And, of course, Percy, being the Tinkerer, being one of the smartest ones in the group, was the one to kind of come up with this idea. So yeah, again, I just enjoyed that they gave some time to this. Next up, really quick, I touched on this in my last breakdown, but we have Xanror giving Grog his father's blood axe. And this will be one of his iconic items for the foreseeable future. I'm excited to see it in action. We got a little taste of it in these final fights. But yeah, in the campaign, he also did the whole make sure it doesn't talk to me before I take it type of thing, and that was great to see. Next up, we get a really quick dose of foreshadowing as Scanlan is trying to make amends with Kaylee one last time as she is leaving, but she's not really having it, and she drops that they might be headed to Marquette, which is actually the second or third time Marquette has come up in relation to Scanlan this season. Next up, as we approach the actual trap for Umbrasyl, there's this aerial shot, and one of the things I noticed was this overturned wagon as part of the terrain here, which was the basically only item on the original map during the D&D campaign, so I liked that shout out. Also, Keyleth uses Move Earth to hide everybody in the tunnels that they dug, which is kind of a blink and you miss it thing if you didn't know you were looking for it. Next up, since I've mentioned it every other time this season, I might as well hit this last one. Vex has her primeval awareness go off, which alerts her to the fact that a dragon is nearby. Next up, we've got Umbrasyl landing and springing the trap. Although he doesn't do it himself, he's smart enough to notice, but Vex is able to, sharpshooter and hit that chest onto the pressure plate in order to spring it and get him caught. In the original campaign, that didn't happen. He just landed and got caught immediately. But there was a glyph that Pike had placed that would be like an explosion if Umbrasyl had moved some of like the treasure they laid out as bait, and he actually did not activate that. So a little bit of an interesting distinction from the show. We didn't have the explosive trap in the show, but the fact that they kind of baited us with him noticing the trap. Then because he gets trapped, they all lay into him, and this is kind of indicative of the surprise round of combat that they got in the original campaign for trapping him. In D&D, a surprise round basically means everybody gets to go before the enemies get to go, so you can deal a lot of damage and really put some work in. And, you know, we've seen everybody kind of do cool stuff this season, but we do get one new move from Pike, so I'll specifically shout that out. She casts this like beam from the heavens, and this could be any number of things. My best guess is that it's Flame Strike, but it could be Sacred Flame, it could be Sunbeam, and it could even be Searing Light, which is an ability from Pathfinder that Pike had because they originally started playing Pathfinder before they transitioned to D&D 5e. Next up, we have Umbrasyl turning invisible, which is terrifying. And he actually had this ability in the campaign, but he didn't do it during this phase of their fight. And it's actually greater invisibility, which the distinction there in D&D is if you're invisible, you can't do anything besides move, really, or else your invisibility will wear off. Greater invisibility means you can still attack and you can still do stuff while invisible. So clearly this dragon has the greater version. And it's interesting because Vex is the one to knock him out of his invisibility because this is a concentration spell, which I've explained in an earlier breakdown, so I won't retread there. But an interesting little tidbit is that Vex being the one to knock him out is pretty thematic because she had an ability called Hunter's Mark in D&D where, without getting too in the weeds on it, it essentially let her do more damage to a creature and it gave her a much better chance to find said creature. Next up, we certainly get a moment of the episode where Scanlan and Vax bravely travel where no adventurer has traveled before and give Umbrasyl a personal colonoscopy. This was hilarious, and this did happen in the campaign, but not in this way. So this was kind of a funny change. And the reason they changed it is because in the campaign, Scanlan has an ability called Dimension Door, which essentially lets him teleport a short distance. That is something that they have not played with in the show yet. So either they're going to kind of like eventually give him that ability as a power up, or they just are taking that out altogether. But so in the show, they needed a new way to get them inside the dragon, and thus the colonoscopy was born. But interesting point of order is that they planned to teleport inside the dragon and then do the damage with the immovable rod, but in the show, sword that we see here. But they really had no idea where they were going, so he just went for it and teleported. So they didn't teleport in the back door or anything. They just blindly teleported toward Umbrasyl. And I'll show a couple of clips from this, but things didn't go as smoothly as they had planned.
That brings us to Scanlan.
Okay.
Oh my god.
There we go. Here we go. There we go. I turn to my little buddy and I say, "Are you ready for a ride, little man?" I sort of link arms with good old Vax. Actually, I hug him tight because we're gonna need to be tight together to do this. And I hold up my hand cone and I cast Dimension Door, and I'm gonna aim right for the belly of the beast.
And I say, "This is so fun."
All right.
I'm sure there's a check involved.
Scanlan.
Oh my god.
You are not fully familiar with the physiology of a dragon.
I gave him as much information as I could.
And you did. I would like for you to make an intelligence check on this.
Just an intelligence check.
This is to your ability to ascertain, based on what you've seen, your knowledge of the dragon, where possibly in its body its stomach may be.
Okay. Why
Is
not?
it an advantage because I told him where it would be?
Nope. Shush, Sam. Shush. 12?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Can I give him my luck?
No.
Don't you have to roll?
It's just intelligence, right? There's no other...
Right, you add your modifier, your intelligence
Yeah, it's
modifier to it. You would add 2 to that because of your bardic ability.
Oh,
So
14.
Plus 2 to unskilled checks.
Okay.
Is there
14
anything
then.
extra from Heroes Feast? No?
No. No.
Just suggestions.
So,
14.
both of you grab hands and
Hi.
See what happens.
vanish.
Intelligence.
Love you, buddy.
The darkness that hits your eyes upon vanishing doesn't go away. As darkness still hits you, all of a sudden you are plunged into a thick, wet, crushing interior. You have finished your dimension door spell. You are in darkness. You are being kind of crushed between what feels like 2 layers of musculature.
Jesus.
Both of you.
Hi, dude.
You don't know where each other are. You don't see the other person. There's no
I was
sight. You
hugging
can't
him
hear
when
anything.
we went in.
Are they also
Right.
holding
Are
each
we
other?
touching it all?
Nope.
Oh,
The trajectory of the spell and the unfortunate circumstance and your inability to really put you guys between 2 different sides of a membrane. You don't know where you
Oh,
are.
Jesus.
It's great.
Oh,
It's
no.
going great.
Oh, no.
All right. Is that your turn?
Yeah, that's all. I'll use my movement to go.
You are
Can
considered
try to
restrained.
Click it while you're in there? Can
You are
try
both
it?
considered restrained at this point. So your speed becomes 0. Attack rolls have against you have advantage. You have disadvantage, and you have disadvantage on dexterity saving throws. Also, you suffer 8 points of acid damage, reduced to 4.
Awesome.
All right. It would be the eagle's turn, but they got dissolved.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you for pointing that back out.
Oh, I like to. Well, I just want to point out that you guys held my dragon to the ground for 2 rounds and hit it like a goddamn pincushion.
Well, which was awesome.
You'll feel better once Scanlan and I have dissolved.
I will. All right. And in Pike's turn, Vax, you're up first at the top of your round.
Yeah.
Yourself out. Cut your way out.
I'm just gonna take the dragon blade and I'm going to, as best as I can, drag it in front of me.
Okay.
I'm gonna cut the insides. of this.
First and foremost,
Yeah.
you take 8 points of bludgeoning damage as it is crushing you. The muscles tensing on the inside are just
Got it.
You're in between musculature right now.
Yes.
And just being crushed.
Yes. Probably its sphincter. Now what? 18 to hit.
17, and you pull your up, and you pull the blade, and it's just unable to cut through the
It's luck.
twist muscle and tendon. Okay.
Nothing.
Wait, what is this? Is this an attack?
Yeah.
It's trying from the inside.
Can I cast War God's Blessing?
Does War God's Blessing require you to see the creature?
Probably not.
Yeah,
Find out.
I agree with that.
Probably.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Well,
Why
30
would
feet
it?
makes an attack roll.
When a creature in 30 feet, you makes an attack roll.
Oh!
So, using the guiding bolt, you can see shifting somewhere in the body of Umbrasil.
That's ridiculous. This is so ridiculous.
you see this like form kind of moving in there, and you know, based on what you guys have discussed before. I hope you discussed this plan before.
We
We
did.
discussed it
So thoroughly.
much.
So thoroughly.
The holy text
You get
thread.
and that's a plus 10 bonus. Is that what it is?
Plus 10.
That hits. Go ahead and roll damage. Scanlan, it is now your turn. At the top of your turn, you take 6 points of acid damage, reduced to 3, as you are being. You found your way into the stomach. He did not.
Is it big
Kill
in
it.
there?
Kill it.
It's
Found your way into the
fairly
stomach.
spacious, but it's all squeezed together right now. It's not like
Oh.
a giant empty void. It's like a giant pocket of air in your stomach. It is
Click,
a. It is,
motherfucker.
Oh wait, he can breathe.
no. No, you're also holding your breath. You're also submerged in current liquid that is like dissolving you.
I can move my arms though.
You can. You're still kind of pressed in, but you
Okay,
can move your
that's
hands a little
good.
bit.
That's good. All right, I'm gonna get that rod out and click it.
Okay. Holy fuck.
Come on,
It's
Scanlan.
gonna be weird.
Yes.
Yes!
All right, so you take out the immovable rod and click it, and as you release it, it stays there aloft in the center. You have dark vision as a gnome, correct?
Fly, shithead.
Yeah,
fly.
so you can see it there in the space. Amongst the murky liquid, you can just barely see it shaped there, and it is held aloft. Yes. Good.
Okay, that's good. That's positive, guys. We're getting somewhere. Is that my movement? Is that my bonus? What is
No, that's your action to pull it out.
That's my whole action.
And click it, because it's not easy to do in your current circumstance
Sure,
right now.
sure. Okay, well, I guess that's my action, and I guess as a bonus action, I can't really do anything. I can't inspire anyone because I don't think I can hear. Oh, I'm gonna use the earring. I'm gonna use the earring to say, shit. Fuck. I'm gonna just start screaming and say, "Can you hear me, Vax?"
You guys hear through the ring. All of the air has now escaped your lungs. Vax, you're up. You immediately take.
Tell me.
8 points of bludgeoning damage.
Bludgeoning.
As it's condensing and crushing you from the inside.
All right. I'm going to use my bonus action to try to. Can I sneak attack this thing from inside? I'm inside him. I'm inside him.
I'll say.
That's very surprising.
You can't.
You don't understand. It's different. It isn't like a soft, gooey center. All of its body is still like very dense, sinewy muscle in the vicinity. You don't know where you are in its body, so you don't know where the actual weak points are.
All right.
So I will say, given those circumstances and your ability to barely move.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to use my bonus action first to hit it. It's a disadvantage.
Yes, all attacks because you're still restrained.
Okay, so that is 19, which fucks up.
Unfortunately, it's not cutting through.
And now I'm going to use the dragon sword. Okay. Okay, there's a 21.
21, just barely not able to cut through the dense hide. The blade is caught on what feels like a ligament or something, and it can't quite carve through with your body all crushed up inside.
Well, I will, for my turn, then suffocate.
So yeah, things were not going well for Scanlan and Vax after they teleported inside the dragon. I'll have to tune in to next breakdown to see how that finished out. But one last little moment I want to call out in the show before we wrap things up here, and that is Grog, attaching a rope to his blood axe and throwing it at Umbrasyl and hitching a ride as Umbrasyl flees with Vax and Scanlan still inside of him. It's basically exactly how it played off in the campaign. And there was also a cliffhanger during the original campaign, just like we got in this episode, and I'll share that clip at the end here. But in the original campaign, Grog had an item called the Chain of Returning that he would often attach to his melee weapons so that he could throw them and then retrieve them, since he doesn't have, a cool blink back belt like Vax does with his daggers. In the show, it's just a rope, so I guess we probably won't be seeing that item, but still cool nonetheless that they kept this moment intact. And y'all, that's going to do it for this one. We made it over an hour, so we hit the benchmark. Sorry, not sorry, but no, for real. If you made it this far, I know I've said this several times throughout these breakdowns, but if you've made it an hour deep with me on a 30-minute show, a 22-minute show, really, thank you. I really appreciate it. Again, this is my second to last episode this season, so in case this is the last time I see you, want to hit us with the subscription? That'd be pretty cool. Our channel has absolutely blown up. I'll save the speech for the final episode. So you know what? We'll save it. But like, comment, subscribe. Your boy would appreciate it. We got the podcast. Check that out. Critical Role Campaign 3 content every week. And once this season's over, I'm going to start making some breakdowns about other Critical Role stuff, lore, maybe characters. Drop me a line in the comments if you got anything specific that you'd like to see in that regard. And other than that, y'all, have a good night.
And he's going to go into a dive. As it does so, you watch as the rod hits the edge of the body and tears through the stomach.
Damage.
And tears through the abdomen and out the side of it. The movable rod now shoots out the side of its body.
That's gonna be a lot of damage.
That's
right?
a fucking missile.
Is it?
It's a missile.
Well,
that's a.
That is
8,000 pounds of whatever.
37 points of piercing damage as it ejects
Something.
from the side. He is going to.
I'm still attached to him too.
Correct. As you are pulled up. Let's see here.
I'm going
has
for a
he
ride.
learned all of his legendary saves?
One more.
Fuck.
You're attached to him?
Yep.
By a chain?
Fuck.
You, Grog, are now being lifted up.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Make a strength check.
Advantage on this. 24.
24, yeah. Umbrasyl lifts up and goes full flying speed of 80 feet this way, carrying you dangling beneath and is going to go into a dash and continue to fly up. Up towards Gat Shadow.
Yeah, he's scared. He's scared. He's scared.
With
Scanlan and Vax.
Scanlan and
Vax
Vax
still
inside of
inside
it
of
still.
Oh my
Work that broom, girl. Work that broom.
Oh my god.
Frog dangling from beneath. And that's where we're going to pick up.
Oh.